So welcome. My name is Jennifer Apicella, and I am the program director here at the Pittsburgh Robotics Network. And I welcome you to today's virtual discussion, virtual event. So the Pittsburgh Robotics Network represents one of the world's largest robotics communities in the world. Many of you may already be familiar with Carnegie Mellon University's stellar leadership in computer science, robotics, research and development, artificial intelligence, and more. But what is equally impressive and not as always well understood is the significant depth and breadth of Pittsburgh's commercial robotics business community. So our organization, the Pittsburgh Robotics Network, we represent over 100 of our robotics member organizations located here in our region and as a part of this network. And something that's truly unique about this community is, well, not only the fact that it's a significant global robotics cluster community, but that we represent about 18 different industry segments within robotics, which is impressive on a global scale and very unique for a community to have. So with all of this, that's why Pittsburgh is often referred to as the robotics capital of the world. It's our mission to connect you, our audience, right, with this rapidly growing industry community as we work together to accelerate the overall adoption of autonomous systems. So welcome. Now, if you'd like to learn more about us, which we encourage you to do, you can check us out at our website here, which is robopgh.org. Also, you can follow us on social. So we're very active in Twitter and LinkedIn. We have great communities there, and it would be really great if you could follow us and stay connected to our community. So if you check the link in the chat, that will take you directly to visit us at any of those different media channels. As a matter of fact, those links will take you directly there right now. So if you want to take a minute to click and get engaged, we encourage you to do so. So this will help you to stay in the know for our robotics industry news, events, and other announcements related to this industry community. All right. With that, let's get to today's event, which is what you've all joined us here today for. So this is our Robotics Talent Spotlight, which is an exciting virtual series that is designed to help you and others learn more about the companies who are leading the way in robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, automated systems. This is a really rapidly and fast-paced industry area. And it's hard to keep up sometimes or understand what skills are needed, what these companies are doing, what's being done out there in the world in these spaces. So the best way we think for you to do that is to hear firsthand from the actual people who are doing this exciting and interesting work every day, so that you can better understand more about who they are, where they work, well, what they're doing, what types of technologies they're building, what type of customers use their products, and so on. Today, we're going to be talking to two individuals from Argo AI, which is the organization we're featuring today. They're going to give you a better idea of both what Argo AI is doing, as well as the nature of their work there. And all of this, is again designed to help you stay more engaged and connected to these companies, this community, and this industry. Now, before we start, real quick, I must give thanks and recognition to our phenomenal leading sponsors. These organizations that you see here are the Pittsburgh robotics community, right? These are leaders in their respective areas. We've got, academic and research stars like Carnegie Mellon University, which is one of our founding sponsors, and the University of Pittsburgh. We've also got Denton's Global Venture Technology Group, JP Morgan, Cohen. These are organizations that are global business growth leaders and valuable partners to our robotics community. And then, of course, we also have leaders in autonomous development, notably in autonomous vehicle development with Argo AI and Aurora. So check out the chat. There are links to all of these organizations. If you're not familiar with them, we encourage you to become so because they really are fantastic organizations. Speaking of fantastic organizations, today's event is presented by Argo AI. And for those of you who aren't familiar, you're going to learn a little bit more about them here in just a little bit. But just to give you a quick summary, Argo AI is a self-driving technology platform company that builds the software, hardware, maps, and cloud support infrastructure to power self-driving vehicles. They have a focus on robust, scalable self-driving technology that can safely drive in urban, highway, and suburban environments, and their technology will enable autonomous commercial goods delivery and ride-hail services. So something you should know, they have partnered with Ford Motor Company and Volkswagen Group to integrate Argo AI technology into their vehicles. And today, Argo AI employs more than 1,500 people. So the company's US headquarters is located here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Yay. They also have European headquarters in Munich, Germany. And they test their technology in 8 cities across the US and Germany. Now, if you're interested in career opportunities at Argo AI, the good news is they are currently hiring. This is a growing company doing amazing things. So if you check out the link in the chat, that'll take you directly to view their career opportunities currently available. So thank you to Argo AI. Okay, so one final note before we jump into today's discussion, just to let you know, this event is scheduled currently for 60 minutes. And we have allowed some time at the end of today's discussion. We've allotted about 10 minutes. We're going to take questions directly from you in the audience. We want to hear from you. What's on your mind, what you want to ask the panelists. And so we will encourage you to enter any of your questions ongoing throughout today's discussion, and you can use the Zoom Q&A tool. So if you look at your Zoom interface, you should see a little button labeled Q&A. That's where you can enter your questions. That'll create a queue of questions for us, and then we'll be able to, at the end of this discussion, go in and pull out as many as we can to ask the panelists. So don't be shy. We welcome all of your questions. I encourage you to submit anything that's on your mind as we chat. Okay, so let's get started. I am going to be moderating today's discussion with these 2 amazing individuals from Argo AI. We are joined here today by Graydon Foyle, who is the lead of prediction at Argo AI. And Graydon earned a PhD in robotics from Carnegie Mellon University, where he focused on science and planetary robotics. There's a story there, I'm sure, and so we'll get to that, and we'll hear from Graydon, so he'll show some of his background there. He's also worked across a variety of industries in his career, but we'll hear from Graydon directly. We're also joined here today by Matt Paholsky, who is a platform test engineer at Argo AI. And Matt has had a hand in the design and operation of 6 generations of Argo self-driving test vehicles. Very impressive. And he focuses primarily now on new feature development. So, but we're going to hear more from him too. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out this screen share. And let's go and jump right into our discussion questions. So welcome, Graydon and Matt. So glad for you to join us today.
Yeah, excited to join today.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very excited.
Great. So first off, for those who are joining us who are not familiar directly with Argo AI, why don't it's probably best to hear, sort of I gave a summary, but let's hear from you directly. Could you help share with us what is Argo AI as a company, and what exactly do they do?
Yeah, so Argo is building out kind of a transportation as a service company. It's a little bit more complicated than that because we're trying to work with OEMs. These are like big global car companies like Ford, Volkswagen, and integrate our software and hardware onto their platforms so we can build out self-driving vehicles for taxi service, goods delivery, delivery from warehouse to warehouse, that kind of thing. So it's to us, it's a really exciting problem. It's like a combination of hardware, classical robotics, machine learning, operations plays a huge part in it, and human-robot interaction.
Yeah, as you said, you had an amazing introduction to Argo, but to sort of expand upon that further with what Graydon said, Argo is we're very close to our 5-year anniversary. So we were founded in 2016, which is really exciting. So from humble beginnings here in Pittsburgh, we're now, on 2 continents. And most recently, we have some really interesting partnerships. Argo recently announced that we will be operating on the Lyft network for transportation as a service, as Graydon alluded to, right? And we're also partnered with Walmart. We're really focusing on sort of that level 4 autonomous vehicle application, of trying to answer these operational logistical problems while also building the next form of transportation, which is a self-driving car.
Excellent. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. Now, you mentioned this level 4, autonomy. And so for those who aren't familiar, what that is referencing, there are 5 levels of autonomous vehicles. It's sort of a categorization, but could one of you or both of you actually give us some insights on what are these 5 levels of autonomous vehicles? Because there are other companies out there doing different things with autonomy. I think this is helpful to understand sort of what these levels are, where the technology is at today with Argo and the applications that you're working on. Give us some insights on that.
Sure. So there are 5 levels of autonomy, as you alluded to. The first level, level 1, being a traditional sort of very boring cruise control type system. And then level 5 is, fully autonomous, no map, the crazy futuristic kind of thing, right? With everything in between. And so where Argo is focusing on the level 4 autonomy of being able to operate on a mapped area in a constrained design domain, in a fixed sort of area. And I'll actually let Graydon sort of expound upon that a little bit more.
Yeah, so we use the term ODD, which is operational design domain. And this really means that we want to understand where our robots are safe to drive, what actually happens in these environments, all sorts of stuff like that. So, we'll start simple with 4-way stops, and we'll work up to, heavy snow, things like that's really hard for our sensors. Level 5 is kind of like astoundingly complex. It's like the stuff humans do, every day. Some of the driving we do is very easy. Some of it's very hard, like, driving in a blizzard where you can't see the lines on the road, that kind of thing. So getting all the way to level 5 is going to be a while. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions in what sensors do we need on the vehicle, what compute do we need on the vehicle, all sorts of stuff like that. So we're really focusing on level 4. So looking very closely at the environments we drive, what are the capabilities we need to build out so we can drive in these environments. What are the environmental conditions we can drive under, be it like light rain, heavy dust, all sorts of stuff like that. And understanding what are the capabilities of our hardware today, where do we need to get in the future to be able to expand to more cities, especially more northern cities in the winter, and what are the gaps we need to fill there. I think one interesting thing to add to this is that a lot of people, when they think of self-driving cars, they think of fully level 5 autonomy, and that how can you build a product that it is so constrained. But the reality is that people drive around on normal, easy to drive roads all the time. They need rides on these roads. They need goods delivered on these roads, that kind of thing. So a self-driving car company doesn't have to fully solve level 5 autonomy in order to have a good product. And we, I don't know, the market is so enormous that we can kind of build out, smaller niche markets in areas we understand well. And it's still going to be a very, very good product. Sometimes we use the analogy that your Roomba is a very good product. It does, one job exceedingly well, but you don't expect your Roomba to drive across the street and clean your neighbor's house. So
yeah.
Yes.
I wish my neighbors.
Maybe there will be shared Roombas in the future. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of similar to our cars, that it does something very well. We understand our domain, we understand kind of the limits of the system, and we're working on expanding those in the future and building up what we have now.
That's really helpful. Yeah, I think just understanding that, because it's true, because I think when it comes to these sort of advanced technology fields, there's always the future forward looking, but where we're at today, right? The future is here and there is a now. And so that gave us, I think your analogies and both of your explanations helped us understand sort of where we're at now and where we're looking to in the short term, right? So thanks for that. Now, so we understand, I think, a little bit better now what Argo is all about, what's being worked on as an organization, the technology. But let's talk a little bit about you. So what would be really great, I think what people are tuned in for today, is to learn a little bit more as the technology advances and as these companies, right, grow. New roles are being created all the time, right? Different types of work needs to be done. And so maybe help explain each of you the work that you're doing today, right, in robotics and autonomy, specifically, right, your title. What does that mean? There are a lot of titles out there that are sort of like, what exactly does that mean on the day-to-day? What do you do? What does that work entail? Is it software? Is it hardware? Is it, people management? Are you working just with, cars all day? Is it teaming? So yeah, so if you happen to be a hiring manager and also a team member, that's good talking to what your team does, what you do, and how that relates to your organization. So yeah, with that, whoever wants to go first, help us understand that.
Sure. So I'm the lead of prediction at Argo, and when I say prediction, I guess it means a little bit of a different thing depending on what self-driving car company you talk to. But my team kind of takes all of the historical information about every actor in the scene, and we try to understand, what were they doing in the past, what's kind of their current state or their current intention, and where are they going in the future. So sometimes this is very easy, like a car is just driving in its lane, and we can kind of take its kinematics and predict it forward in the future. A lot of times it's a lot harder. So, if we see a pedestrian standing on the corner, that pedestrian could be loitering, they could be waiting for the light to turn green, and then they'll proceed across the crosswalk, stuff like that. So we, I guess on the team itself, we have a good mix of people who are kind of classical robotics people. They've worked on vehicle platforms before, or not just vehicles, but all sorts of robotic platforms. People who are very strong in C++. The guy I sit next to at work wrote the rendering pipeline for all the Disney animation movies, and he taught me C++ templates. And then we have people on our team who are very strong in machine learning. So machine learning is a huge part of what we do. Working more and more towards understanding kind of the entire scene and the kind of relationships that are built up between a scene and the social interactions, how vehicles and pedestrians interact with each other, that kind of thing. And that's what machine learning is very good at. My specific role, so I do a lot of, kind of coordination within the team and between our team and others. A lot of it is, figuring out, what our vehicle is doing well, what it's not doing well, how we need to prioritize stuff in the future. I do a lot of hiring, so we're kind of always aggressively hiring. And yeah, I guess that explains it.
Great. What about you, Matt?
So I think that I personally have the best job at Argo. I am a member of our platform test team. So that's a part of our systems engineering, integration, and test group here at Argo. And specifically inside of platform test, what we focus on are our new feature integration and validation, as well as sort of our deep level platform testing. And what I mean by that is we are constantly adding in new features or components to the self-driving vehicles at a program by program basis, as well as we evolve. So some of the really cool, exciting things that I've been working on have included, how do we update the software on the vehicles and how do you do that at scale? What does it look like now that we are integrating with Lyft to do some of their integration type things? How do you take the hardware that we have been using with our Ford program, and then how do you copy and paste some of those learnings as we start up our operations with Volkswagen on a different continent, and then vice versa. How do you transfer that knowledge share? So it's been a really exciting, every day is different. I spend a lot of time in the vehicles. I get to spend a lot of time talking to people like Graydon, our hardware engineers, our operations team. It's sort of the nexus across a bunch of different organizations. It's a really fun position, and we're also hiring.
Really helpful. Yeah, I think sometimes these roles by title only are difficult to decode right functionally what the work is. So it gives everyone, I think, a peek behind the curtain in terms of what kind of work is being performed. So yeah, that's great. Now, so we talked a little about the organization, right? The technology, your roles. But I think what's really fascinating, and when I've spoken to you both before, or anytime I talk to anyone working when they really love their job, I find there's a lot of value in when a story is shared, right? As to what led you to where you're at now, right? Everyone's got a story. And I think the audience would love to hear, right? So, and you can start back as far as you want to go, but give us an idea as to what led you to this current role that you're at in Argo, whether it be, something in college or even earlier in your learning, for the passion that you had for this kind of work, what led you to develop and cultivate these skills, what kind of education or training you received to sort of position you for where you're at, and maybe even other places you worked. Sometimes I find that when people share their stories, they talk about the things they didn't like, and that almost cracks open and clarifies why, oh, that makes so much sense. That's why you love what you do now. So whatever you think is relevant to share, I would encourage each of you to give us an idea of your journey and what led you to your current role at Argo.
Yeah. I don't know. I like to think about my journey as kind of a series of fortunate events. So it certainly feels like it worked out really well in my favor. So I grew up thinking I was going to be a doctor. I was very excited about medicine. I worked in a hospital in high school. I went to Bowdoin College, which had a very good pre-med program. And when I got there, I was not at all excited about the biology classes I had to take to be pre-med. And my neighbor in my dorm was taking computer science, and I ended up, looking at her homework and doing about half of her homework throughout the semester. And next semester, I joined the introductory computer science class, which I never done before, and I just loved it. I took every single class at the college. It was a very small department, and the final year of my undergrad, I founded a robotics program competing in RoboCup. So these were like robot dogs, the old Sony Aibos, if any of you know them. And when I was there, we did okay. I think we placed second to last in the US Open. So it wasn't last, but for a one-person team, I was happy. And then I graduated and I moved down to Boston to be with my now wife. And she applied to veterinary schools. I applied to grad schools. She got into the ones she wanted to. I didn't get into the ones I wanted to. And so we decided that she would go to vet school. I would work for a while, and then we would kind of reevaluate if I wanted to go to grad school. So I worked for 4 years on medical billing software, and the people were great, but I knew it wasn't something I wanted to do long term. So when she graduated, I reapplied. And in the kind of like 4 intervening years, the RoboCup team at my undergrad had gone from second to last at the US Open to winning the US Open to winning the World Cup. So this was amazing for my grad school prospects because people actually knew my school and this program that I had started. And I ended up getting into Carnegie Mellon's Robotics Institute, and that's where I ended up. So while I was there, I focused on planetary robotics and science autonomy, which is kind of the idea that like we're trying to teach robots to be able to do science completely autonomously, on different planets, on our own planet, things like that. And I really loved being hands-on with a robot, like having a robot I could tinker with, things like that. After I graduated, I worked for a few years for Mesh Robotics, which was working on off-road self-driving vehicles. This was amazing. During the summers, I was out on trails every day, in a self-driving ATV, essentially, with a laptop, and it was beautiful. And I loved it, but after a few years, I started looking for other stuff, and some friends recommended Argo. And I just loved the company. So I was deciding between Argo and another company, and what I liked most about Argo was that they had a robot, which I had always kind of loved. The other company was working a lot on analyzing whether or not deep learning systems were safe to deploy on autonomous vehicles and in other kind of real world domains, but they were working largely offline with other people's data, and I wanted a robot. So ultimately I came to Argo. I loved the team that I met when I interviewed for the prediction position. I had been kind of mostly self-taught, C++ and Python. But I really wanted to kind of challenge myself, work with a group of people that were really exceptional coders, designers, roboticists, exceptional machine learning as well. And I saw that in the team at Argo. So I started out as a software engineer, and I guess 2 or so years ago, I became the lead of the team, and here we are.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that story with us. What about you, Matt? What's your background?
Yeah, so similar to Graydon, starting off, I did not think I would turn into a roboticist. When I was in high school, I thought I was really interested in law, and I was going to become a lawyer. And then my junior year of high school, I took calculus and said, wow, this is amazing. So I started thinking about engineering. And then I wound up applying to some colleges, and I was accepted at Georgia Tech and visited, and I absolutely fell in love. And so I started as an electrical engineering major at Georgia Tech, and I kept the pre-law minor that never comes up. And while I was at Georgia Tech, I was able to work on, physical systems, and I really fell into the electrical engineering side of things. And starting my junior year of college, I had a co-op opportunity at Michelin's research group in Greenville, South Carolina. And so while I was at Michelin, I was able to work on their test cell infrastructure, sort of their static testing of tires. I know a weird amount about tires and how to instrument things around them. And I also spent 2 summers working at their test track, which was a really interesting introduction to working with vehicles and trying to collect data from vehicles and really thinking about tests and repeatability, as well as robotics, how to add in robots, and how do you look at some of the very manual test applications and replace, a human who has to go out there and slam on the brakes all day. How can you do that semi-autonomously? How can you do that semi-autonomously on a rental car so that way you can't actually bolt things down? It was a really, really good introduction. And then during my finals year, I interned at Uber at the time, Uber ATG, the Uber self-driving group. So that was my introduction to sort of formal robotics, as well as Pittsburgh. So then I had 1 semester left, and I was asked by a colleague, there was a freshman who walked up to me and said, hey, can you show me how to apply to jobs? And so I talked her through the process of applying to a few different organizations, and I took my resume and I applied to Argo, just trying to show her the process. And then 3 days later, I was in Pittsburgh interviewing. While I've been at Argo, so that was, oh gosh, almost 4 years ago now, almost to the day. At my time at Argo, I started as an integration engineer, working on our first generation of cars, the second generation of vehicles, and scaling that from 6 to 35 vehicles. I transitioned to our reliability team, sort of trying to figure out the mysteries of when an issue occurs in the fleet. How do you resolve that? And how do you get the correct debug information? And now I've been on our platform test team for the last 2 years. And that fleet of 6 cars has now grown to like 160 something across 2 continents, which is pretty cool, pretty fun to see.
That's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I think that really helps because I think everyone's journey is different. And I think it also helps for anyone who's interested, right, in the work that is being done at Argo. And they think, well, I wonder if someone like me, could participate, or that sounds exciting. I think it's good to just hear different perspectives to see that there's no straight path. It's not like you have to have gone and done a specific thing and have a specific degree. While some things do require certain types of skills, right? It sounds like there are a wide variety of opportunities to do different things. And you both, it looks like, started as something and then have moved your way up. So it also looks like it's a company that likes to develop the people that are there and give them opportunities to grow and be challenged and continue to pursue their passions. So that's great. So okay, so that's helpful from sort of where we're at today, where you were at before, and then the personal story behind each of you. Now, when it comes to the industry, and we think of robotics, there are so many, pretty much, I mean, every industry is touched by sort of autonomous machines, intelligent and autonomous machines right now. And so someone who wants to work in robotics doesn't have to necessarily work with autonomous vehicles, right? There are lots of things you could do, warehouse logistics, industrial automation and manufacturing. There's healthcare, sort of different types of robotics in healthcare, space robotics, right? And many, many more, ag tech. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I guess my curiosity would be, of all the different robotic opportunities out there, why autonomous vehicles? What is it about the autonomous vehicles sort of industry sub area specifically that you both, that calls to you, that speaks to you, and that, sort of said, yeah, this is the path I want to go down, for myself?
Sure. Yeah, that's a really excellent question that, it's very funny. It's a very pertinent question for Pittsburgh, as there are so many different, shameless plug for the Pittsburgh Robotics Network. But specifically focusing on autonomous vehicles and self-driving cars, something that I'm really drawn to is this idea of how big of an impact we can make on society. I grew up in New Jersey, where you have to have a vehicle to get around, right? There really isn't a very great concept of a bus network. There are trains near New York, but just being able to work on something and help improve people's lives and improve access to mobility is something that I'm really, really passionate about, and is something that I can work on every single day here at Argo. And then layering that on, as someone who works on the vehicles every day and is out on the public road and sees how other people, humans, operate vehicles, it is a very pertinent reminder of how much of a safety implication we have on the greater community, and how that excites me. Because I like driving, but I would much rather be able to know that my Walmart packages were being delivered by a self-driving vehicle, or be able to order a self-driving Lyft or anything like that. That's something that's very, I just get so excited to wake up every day.
Excellent. Yeah. What about you, Craig?
Yeah, for me, it was hard to turn down. But I guess, like, personally, it kind of feels like our generation's space race. And so being a part of that and being kind of at the forefront of it was super exciting for me. I think one of the cool things about prediction is that it's not a solved problem. So it's a really cool it's a really cool blend of like applied robotics and like actually being pragmatic and getting something on the car, and like building out these brand new systems with machine learning and like research level systems that we're building out and evaluating on like a day-to-day basis. And that was really exciting to me, that like I wasn't kind of re-implementing some paper that everyone knows really well. We are kind of like learning as we go, and like we're actually like seeing the vehicle get better and better and being able to like understand and handle more situations. And then I don't know, personally, like I mentioned before, that like being able to work on an actual robot is just really fun. So the fact that I can like go outside and like pull up an app on my phone and call a self-driving car to pick me up, not all of the public can do that yet, although pretty soon in Miami you'll be able to do it with Lyft. But being able to do that is just awesome, and it's so much fun. And writing some bit of code and then going out in the car and like seeing the car handle something that it hadn't been able to handle before, or there's you add something that makes the car safer, or makes the car smoother and drive more like a human. Being able to make those advancements and kind of see them in real time is really fun.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's helpful. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit here. So, we've talked a lot about each of you and the work you do and the industry and all these different things, but something I think that's really unique and on the top of mind for a lot of people today as humans who can have a lot of options or opportunities and a lot of different companies out there that we partner with, right, when it comes to our careers, and that we invest our time and our skills in. You've both picked Argo AI. Can you give everyone an understanding of what it's like to work for that company just in general? So the reason why I ask this is because I think, upon the emergence of COVID and the pandemic, and there were a lot of changes to the workforce, right? A lot of companies went completely remote. A lot of companies didn't. A lot of companies did a blend. Some of them really thought out their programs and their people and how to support people, right, with whatever we're all going through, and support those teams. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like in terms of your experience working at Argo, right? Can you work remote? Do you have to work a certain way? Is it, there's hardware involved, right? So I imagine you have to be there to some of the jobs have to be there to be physically present to do some of this work. But yeah, what is that environment like? What are those conditions like? And how do they support? So if you do have the remote option, how does the organization support you? And anything else you want to share about the day-to-day of just what it's like to be a person on the team at Argo?
Yeah. So we have very different experiences. So this is an interesting question. I personally almost entirely work remote. To the point that unfortunately the company is taking back my parking pass because I haven't been in enough recently. But we've really like embraced remote work. We all had to when COVID hit, but even when COVID is kind of subsiding and almost the entire office is vaccinated, the company has said that like if you want to work from home, do it. Like this is a thing now, and it's really something we're embracing and we're supporting. If you want to work part-time from home, that's fine. If you want to work in the office all the time, that's fine. And my team, we have people on my team that moved across the country to be closer to friends and family. We have people, obviously like some of my team is in Munich, some of my team is in the US. There's people on my team I have worked closely with and I would consider myself, good friends with that I've never met in person. And it's this weird world we live in. And now that like travel restrictions are being lifted, it's like so fun to actually meet them in person. We had some of the prediction team, come over to the US this past week, and it's amazing to like finally meet these people in person and like have lunch with them. We do like fully support people who want to be remote. I think one thing we've tried to do and that we've done really well is like be really cognizant of how people want to work. And it's not even just like I want to work remote or not remote, but people who have to work remote and don't necessarily want to, how do we support them? So people who, really enjoy kind of the water cooler talk and like bumping into someone in the hallway and, standing around a whiteboard for 20 minutes. How can we replicate that virtually? Because even once people go into the office, like we still want to maintain close contact with, our Munich team, and we have people, scattered all across the US. So that's always important. So maintaining these levels of communication, we have time out of every day that we call our protected team time, where it's an hour where, anyone can bring up topics they want to discuss, and we'll meet virtually and like set up a virtual whiteboard and be able to just brainstorm with each other and try and like virtually replicate the whole water cooler talk. So yeah, I think remote work is a little bit tricky, but the people we have are independent, and we get a lot of support from leadership, and the leads on our team. Like, we all really want to make it work, and we want our team to be an awesome place to work, and we want to like foster those channels of communication. And so because it's important to so many people, it works really well.
Great. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, and so as Graydon said, I have a very different perspective. I'm actually zooming in from the office today, and I spend quite a bit of time inside of the office. Not only that, but also, traveling. I was able to visit our colleagues in Dearborn, Michigan, just a few weeks ago, and then in 2 weeks, I will be traveling to Munich to meet some counterparts there. And so there's a wide range of sort of options that people can have. And very similar to what Graydon said, something that I think is really great is that flexibility for, really making us rethink what does our tooling look like? How do you sort of build that replication, right? How do we improve our bench infrastructure so anybody can log into something remotely, right? Not while it's out on public road, but sort of that analog, so you can actually get your work done, is a pretty cool project that I've been spending a little bit of time working on. And, just to touch on some of the colleagues that I've been able to work with through the years, Argo is a really excellent parental leave program. I've had coworkers that, yes, they were coming into the office, and then they and their significant other, have a child, and now I haven't seen them because they've got new life in the world. And that's, really awesome to see. And so it's been a really fun way of sort of working on all of these different ways and working with all these different types of people. And just like Graydon said, every once in a while I'll turn a corner and it's like, oh, hey, I've been in like hundreds of hours of Zoom meetings with you, and you're in the office today. Amazing.
That's nice. It is nice to see humans in real life when you've been dealing with them virtually a lot. It offers just a new context, which is fun.
Exactly.
But it's nice that you have that flexibility. It really is. It's nice that it's really role-based. It takes into consideration the person doing the work, the teams, the work that needs to be done. So many organizations aren't always that flexible. So it's nice to hear, right, when there is an organization out there that's sort of like, let's do what works, right? It's about the people, it's about the work. You can bring them all together and make, both move forward in the best way possible, win-win for everyone. And so we're not quite yet, so we'll be taking some questions from the audience in just a little bit. So just a reminder to everyone, there is the Q&A button in your Zoom interface. If you have any questions, now's the time. We've got a lot of questions in the queue, so we'll be just selecting several to give to the panelists. If you want to get your question in now, would be the time. One question that I am just going to pop out into this, because I think it relates to this question that we're currently talking about. You had mentioned that there are different office locations, and Graydon, I think you mentioned your team was somewhat distributed, right? You meet virtually they're located all over. Matt, you mentioned you'll be visiting other spaces. So Ryan from the audience wanted to know, are Argo's operations split between all those different office locations? Are certain departments or focus areas dedicated in different locations? Is it distributed? Is there crossover? If either one of you could share just sort of like how that works, if it's fully distributed or what the different office locations might uniquely have to offer.
Sure,
Yeah.
I definitely, sorry.
No.
I think sort of the division of where the hubs of operations are historical almost more than anything. When I started with Argo, we had our headquarters in Pittsburgh. We had offices in California and Dearborn, and then we started an operations office in Miami. Since then, we've grown, and so it's pretty interesting because you can work from anywhere, not only at a state by state or country by country basis. It really is, our Argo LiDAR group was started in Cranberry, New Jersey, but now we have Argo LiDAR employees working just about everywhere. We have an operations office in Austin, Texas, but I think something weird, like seven of the last 10 people that were accepted were hired for Austin. So we're growing all over the place and sort of working. I work with everybody from pretty much everywhere, from the southern tip of Miami to the edge of Seattle, and then all across Europe and other continents as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good answer. So my team, we have people in pretty much every office, and people who work kind of strictly remote. I think the only real caveat we have, and this is a lot less relevant today than it was, pre-COVID, was we try not to have a single person from your team in one of the offices. And sometimes you had to do it for a little bit, so you could hire multiple people at that office, and you might have one single person growing a team around them. But these days it feels like the teams are so remote anyway that matters less and less. And there's always teams that my team works closely with that are they have established offices in Palo Alto or wherever, and so I feel fine hiring people for that office because they work so closely with these other teams on a day-to-day basis anyway.
That's great. Yeah, I think that just speaks to, again, the flexibility and just companies sometimes are out of touch with what people need, right? And what the workforce is demanding. And it sounds like Argo is not. Argo is very much in tune with how to build a successful company culture, right? And also, right, solutions. So what a exceptional thing to be able to do. One last question before we dig into the audience Q&A. I think this is, again, another thing that's very top of mind and very important today is when it comes to the culture at Argo AI and the programs or the benefits for the different types of people in the workforce, right? How would you say, Argo values diversity, equity, and inclusion? And do you see that internally in the programs that are offered, whether they, it be your peers that you see engaging in these things, programs you're aware of, the support systems there? Can you speak a little bit to, how Argo has excellence in that area, or what programs they have available? Any examples you can give would be great.
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. One thing that I really like about Argo is we have this concept of the Argo Resource Group. It's very similar to some other organizations have things like employee resource groups. But I think it's very cool because we have a huge array of groups that are focusing on different representations of different groups, as well as allyship, which is really excellent to me. One thing that I have a coworker who sits next to me who is part of our Women at Argo group, and they have a book club that is monthly. We have the Young Professionals group that I am a part of. One that is relatively recently started up is our Neurodivergent group at Argo, which is hosting a stress management session this afternoon that I'll probably be attending as we get closer to Thanksgiving and in this time of COVID, right? How do you balance everything that's going on in the world? And there are some other ones that are some really, really excellent. REMA, our Racial and Ethnic Minorities at Argo, is an incredible organization that really tries to get groups together to do community outreach events that I think is really awesome. These are just some of the groups that I'm a part of that I've been able to sort of work with in the past couple months that I think is really, really excellent. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I think one thing too is that they get a lot of support from leadership. So it's not just kind of employees getting together and making this happen, but it's leadership is inviting these people to speak at all hands, and they're providing financial support to bring in speakers and performers, lots of stuff like that. Additionally, we have some good leadership programs. So we have like an emerging leaders program for kind of like any developing leader, but then we also have a women in leadership program, and the lead of prediction in Munich, she was in this program last year, and she said it was phenomenal. So it's working closely with CMU's Tepper School of Business, and like a number of invited speakers. She attended a large conference in Frankfurt this past year. So a lot of support for that program, and all these resource groups in general.
Excellent. That's really good to hear. Okay, so this has been a fantastic discussion, and it's so my questions, right? I'm going to pause because I really want to hear from you all out there, right, in the audience. We've had the Q&A feature. We've got a nice queue of questions. I don't know that I'll be able to get to them all, but I'm going to go through and just grab a few here for either Graydon or Matt, and we'll just see how many we can get through and see what answers we can give. So if you could give some brief responses. Why don't we start with one here? So this question actually was directed toward Matt. Micah wants to know, would you consider your general position of a test and integration engineer a more software or hardware oriented role? And how important do you think it would be to know C++ or other programming languages, even if you are more hardware oriented?
Yeah, the more skills you have, the better. And the more C++ experience, the better off you'll be. Absolutely. I sort of consider myself a hardware-oriented person. I spend a lot of time with the software engineering team. And often I'll find myself, I'm the one raising my hand of, hey, can we pull out an oscilloscope and sort of get at the very low level debug kind of thing. But that is the complete opposite of my partner, the person who sits across from me. He spends a lot of time, working in Python, developing sort of like hyper-specific internal tools, so that way we can make data analysis better. And so the short answer is, yeah, any way that you find interesting and that you can bring in from a previous background is always excellent. And then there are other, more specific tools that you'll sort of build along the way. I never knew that I'd be spending so much time staring at a CAN bus until I really started working in my current position.
Great. Another question that's sort of related to that one, right? Because I think a lot of people are curious about skills, being that this is an emerging industry area, and skills are important. So someone asked just a general question: what should the focus maybe during graduate studies or, just their studies in general, if they want to specifically enter the self-driving industry? So, and then they asked to distinguish, should the focus be on becoming a full stack roboticist? Is that the best path? Or becoming more of a domain specific roboticist, for example, maybe zeroing in on perception or some other more specialized area? Either one of you can take this. What's the best approach?
Yeah. So I would say there's probably value in both. So on my team, we hire for a lot of different things. So people strong in machine learning, people strong in C++, people strong in robotics, metrics and tooling, offboard, all of that sort of stuff. Some of the teams are more specialized. So, if you really want to do perception related work, it helps to specialize in convolutional neural networks and all of that, image processing, LiDAR processing, stuff like that. Some teams do look for like very specific skill sets. So I know, our tracking people who are, estimating the kinematics of objects in the scene, being able to kind of understand probability and uncertainty, Kalman filters, stuff like that is very important. But I feel like the generalist roboticist is equally as important. So we are happy to find good generalists because they can just dive in everywhere. And like lots of, I guess, often the people we hire, and I was kind of a generalist when I joined, These are people who have experience like actually getting robots to run. They understand like how to debug a robot that isn't running. What are the common things to look for? What are like the pitfalls of designing a robotics platform? How do we, look at what a robot did, on the road and figure out kind of where the core failure was, and how do we improve on it? And those people are also incredibly valuable.
Great. Now, we have a few people. So Roman wanted to know, as a junior developer, right? Is there a space that not every organization hires junior devs, right? They sometimes sort of say like, oh no, we're looking for senior devs. Do you have positions for junior devs? Do you have internal tools or teams that contribute to help them to be where a junior could maybe contribute and build themselves up to become more productive on the team?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we, every year we're hiring people directly out of undergrad, right? This isn't to say as you have to have your own Wikipedia page or multiple PhDs or anything, right? There are junior developers that we're bringing in every day. One of the biggest focuses that I've been working with some of our more junior colleagues is understanding our analytics. That's always a really excellent space. We have all of this data from these fleets of vehicles. And just like Graydon said, there is a lot of tooling around how do you understand what one vehicle did versus a fleet of vehicles versus a fleet of vehicles that we've deployed across 2 continents. And so really thinking about that and being able to handle this large sort of data set and thinking large and small is something that a lot of the more junior developers sort of bring in that I think is really cool. And there are lots of problem spaces on lots of different teams. I think pretty much every team at this point has at least one almost purely analytics focused person, which is pretty neat, not only in core autonomy, but also our off-board spaces and in operations, actually.
Yeah, and we want a lot more.
That's good.
I guess the one other thing I would add, there's a really good internship program. So even people who are not done with undergrad, that is probably starting up soon, like applications for that are probably starting up soon if they haven't already. And then there's a really good mentorship program within the company. I'm part of that, and my mentor is the lead of the Munich office, which was so cool for me to like be able to kind of work closely with this like C-level employee. And he has a ton of history, and he's helped develop me a lot. But that extends all the way throughout the company, and mentorship is a really big thing here.
That's great. Yeah, that's important. So we have a ton of questions. I can't get to them all, but the final question here, we're gonna end with a head scratcher here. I'm gonna throw this one in for consideration. When it comes to level 4 autonomy, this question is from Bo. What is the toughest problem that you're currently facing, right? What is the hurdle, right? When it comes to level 4, I'm sure it's probably complicated, it's multifaceted, but if you had to sum it up, what do you think is sort of the challenge that everyone's struggling with level 4?
I can give a specific example of what I'm struggling with, or one. Yeah, so that is an infinitely broad space type problem. But one big problem that I am working towards right now is, as I've said, we have 2 partners, on 2 different continents and multiple different sort of problem spaces working with Lyft and Walmart and also our development fleet. And so one big aspect of level 4 autonomy is working towards scale and understanding how do we deploy a fleet of self-driving cars across a continent or across 2 continents, and then do it again the next day, and then do it again the next day, and not also have to spend $1 trillion on like AWS costs or something crazy like that, right? How do you actually do it and make an impact on society is one aspect of the level 4 problem that I've been focusing on recently.
Yeah, my team thinks a lot about kind of understanding social situations, which is just very easy for a human to do and very hard for a robot to do. So some of these are kind of straightforward to think about, but like driving through a construction zone, like humans have very good perception. You can just look at kind of an arbitrary array of cones and figure out, where should I drive and where should I not drive? And it is very hard for a robot to do that. We've been discussing it a lot. We have stuff that works on car, but being able to do that, at 70 miles an hour on a highway, and be able to do it every single time, so you don't slam on the brakes or have some juke or anything like that, and being that robust to these like weird situations you see on the road, I think is really interesting. The other one is like, how do we call it deep forecasting. So how do we take deep learning, and how do we take millions of examples of people driving on the road to recognize how some situation is likely to play out? So how people are likely to interact socially, how a pedestrian is likely to veer around a car coming towards them, if they're going to wait for the car to pass, or just jump out in front of you, that kind of thing. And being able to not only like create realistic predictions for these movers, but actually integrate that with the car, so the car is kind of understanding why you are making these decisions, and not like kind of forcing the correct behavior out of our motion planner by like blocking off regions of the space with predictions, but like being able to integrate it well with your planner and say like, we think this person is likely to or we can't tell if this person is about to cut us off, like you need to slow down a little bit, it kind of looks like they're going to. And being able to like work closely with like multiple components of the system to get this really cool social understanding, I think is a very cool problem, also very difficult.
Excellent. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our discussion. So there were lots of questions. Thank you all for tuning in. I want to thank Argo AI again for presenting this event and sharing their story. And I want to thank Graydon and Matt for joining us today and sharing your story, right, about your lives and your passions and the work that you do there. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in. Thank you so much to all of you for participating, for your fantastic questions and your engagement. Like I said, follow us at robopgh.org, and you can find all of our social channels. This session is recorded, so all of you who registered for today's event will be sent a little survey, which you'll see actually when you close out the event. If you could just take a few seconds and let us know how we can do better for you. We'd love to hear your feedback, and yeah, we'd love for you to stay in touch and stay engaged. So this has been a phenomenal discussion. I've learned a lot, and I've enjoyed all of this, and I thank all of you. So with that, I'll let you continue on with the rest of your day, whatever time of day it may be, for whatever time zone or country you've joined us from. So again, thanks so much, and you take care and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.